Bismillah, alhamdulillah, salatu wassalamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi man wala, thumma amma ba'd. To proceed. So today, inshallah, we'll start a new segment, and we're almost there. Inshallah, we have the segment on al-Hudud wal-Jinayat, and then the segment on al-Jihad, and then the segment on al-Qada. So three different segments that we will need to finish before we finish all the fiqh. Al-Hudud wal-Jinayat. Al-Jihad will be next after al-Hudud wal-Jinayat, and al-Qada will be next. And then al-Shahadat is part of al-Qada. I'm just not talking about the books, I'm talking about the distinct segments that we ought to finish the entire book, inshallah. So what have we finished so far is al-Ibadat, and then we finished al-Muamalat al-Maliyya, and then we finished al-Mawarith, and then we finished al-Usra, fiqh of family, and then we finished, after al-Usra, al-At'ima, fiqh of foods and drinks, and then we finished al-Ayman wal-Nuzur, the segment on oaths and vows. So these are how many big segments? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then we have 7, 8, 9 to finish. Keeping in mind that the section on al-Ibadat is bigger than all these three by multiple folds. So we're done with basically most of the book. You could say that this is all the three segments that are left would constitute like 1/7 to 1/8 of fiqh. So hopefully, inshallah, we can, and I'm not gonna, because usually I end up being wrong whenever I just like make those predictions. So I'm just not gonna say how long it may take us to finish them. But then al-Jinayat is the al-Hudud wal-Jinayat. Al-Hudud wal-Jinayat, and he started by al-Jinayat, is the first segment. So since we're starting a new segment, we'll talk about the different approach we will follow from here until the end of the book, because it's not going to be the same approach. The different issues that we have discussed in the past are extremely relevant to your personal practice as a Muslim, right? Ibadat, financial interactions, fiqh of family, inheritance, oaths and vows, foods and drinks, extremely pertinent. Therefore, our approach was pretty classical. Not classical in the sense, so we're talking about the Hanbali madhab, and then we're given a little bit of comparative flavor, talking about the positions of the other madhahib, and we may have also addressed some of the contemporary issues that are pertinent to the different chapters. That's the usual stuff. Now, when it comes to al-Jinayat wal-Hudud, and when it comes to al-Jihad, and the Qada wal-Shahadat, penalties, judiciary, jihad, these things are, you're probably not particularly I don't expect that you will be establishing any hudud anytime soon, or that you will be presiding over any court hearings and of any penalties, fixed penalties. Therefore, what we will do is, and the important thing that the reason why I told you before that I like to take a classical book and go from cover to cover and not skip and so on is that you should be familiar with everything. Remember that anecdote I told you about the nurse that said my grandmother used to be very religious until she read the Bible cover to cover, and that's when she lost her faith. So Muslims should be always exposed to the tradition, and we should discuss everything in the tradition with transparency and accuracy, but also with contextualization, because it is important to contextualize. It is important to have a better, like a deeper understanding. It is important to understand the sort of the modern application. It is important. So we will talk about the rulings, but since we need more flexibility, we will be talking about, we will be talking a bit more in detail about positions that may suit our times, despite the fact that they are not necessarily Hanbali positions. So when it comes to لا يقتل مسلم بكافر, for instance, a Muslim should not be basically killed for a non-Muslim. This never meant that it was okay for Muslims to kill non-Muslims. It just meant that one of the conditions of istifa al-qisas, or the basically fulfillment of the conditions of equal retribution, was missing according to the Malikis, Shafi'is, and Hanbalis, not according to the Hanafis, who said that this hadith applies to Harbis, not to non-Muslims in general. It applies to Harbis. It does not apply to Dhimmi, which is the contracted Muslim living in Muslim land. Because for the Dhimmi, they report that some Dhimmis have been killed for killing Muslims. Ali report from Ali and report from others. Therefore, the detail may be less when it comes to the technicalities, maybe less, because as I said, I do not expect you to be presiding over any court hearings anytime soon to establish any hudud. Therefore, the amount of details will be less. We will go over the Umdah and provide some commentary on the Umdah, but we will not expand beyond the Umdah like we did in the previous chapters, because your need for detail here is less than you needed it for inheritance or worship or foods and drinks and things of that nature. So there will be less detail, and you do find in the book less commentary. From here until the end of the book, you find a lot less commentary than from the beginning of the book until here. And then we will dedicate some energy to the defense of Sharia in the sense of justification and in the sense of discussing modern application. Discussing modern application. It is important to note that when we discuss modern application, I sent you the articles. But please read my article on the apologetics, Islamic apologetics, and please read it all if you can, because it will explain to you much about how we will proceed from here, and what I mean by justification and what I mean by modern application. And the modern application is based on the principle that the fatwa can change with the change of time and place. This is a principle that was basically stated and emphasized and defended by some of our greatest, most sort of illustrious scholars of our history. or our tradition, from different backgrounds, that is not changing the divine address, but the divine address itself has built-in flexibility to allow us to change the fatwa with the change of circumstances. There is also a concept that is extremely important to understand, which is the concept of reciprocation. وَلَا تَسُبُّوا الَّذِينَ يَدْعُونَ مِن دُونِ اللَّهِ فَيَسُبُّوا اللَّهَ عَدْوًا بِغَيْرِ عِلْمٍ. And do not insult those they invoke besides Allah, lest they will insult Allah. That means what? We're not living in a vacuum. And more than ever, the world has become much smaller and compact more than ever before. Communities do not live anymore parallel lives. They live very engaged, involved, intersecting lives. People used to live in ghettos or used to live in different neighborhoods where this is, Christians lived here, Muslims lived here, or Buddhists lived here, Hindus lived here. And they sent their kids to religious schools. And then they had different professions. The interaction was limited. Now, this is not, the change in the world is not all about a liberal democracy conspiracy that is diluting religion. Some may be related to that. Some people want to trivialize religion and make religion irrelevant and push religion completely outside of the public space. We're absolutely not for that. However, there are logistically, there are different mandates, different requirements of maintaining the civic good in a world that is so integrated, assimilated, where you have the nation state and you have people from different backgrounds who share the same space because of logistical necessity. You have trains, you don't have, caravan, you can't take your camel anymore and wherever you want to go. There are trains and buses and airplanes and so on. There are factories where people of different backgrounds will need to work. If you are in your workers' lounge, should you hang up a verse of the Quran or the Bible that talks about, that may be considered, what?
Offensive?
Yeah, I want to say something respectful. That may hurt the feelings of the coworkers who come to the lounge, in your factory, for instance. Things of that nature. These are dictated by logistical necessities, not an attempt to trivialize religion, but an attempt to maintain the civic good, because the world has become very different, and people are mixed, integrated, assimilated in the public space a lot more than they were in the past. Therefore, how can we figure these things out? Can a Muslim country, and that is part of the discussion that is ongoing between the secular elite and the sort of Islamic movements, there does need to be listening from both ends. People need to listen to each other so that we can find the way out of the chaos and the misery that we live in. Because without basically a system of righteous governance, peaceful transition of power, these are good things. These are not bad things. Whenever people hear this, they just they think that this is, corrupted now, corrupted discourse. Peaceful transition of power is a beautiful thing, good thing. It doesn't have to be like the Abbasiyin will have to take over from the Umayyads and slaughter all the Umayyads and so on, and every sort of dynasty taken over and making a big slaughter so that the beginning of every dynasty, is a massacre. And we have, of Abdullah Saffah to begin the Abbasid dynasty. So it doesn't have to. Peaceful transition of power is a good thing. It happened from the Prophet ﷺ to Abu Bakr, it happened from Abu Bakr to Umar, and in different ways. There was not one sort of protocol that was unified between the Prophet ﷺ and Abu Bakr, between Abu Bakr and Umar, between Umar and Uthman, between Uthman and Ali. It happened in different ways, not one protocol. But there are principles that are respected, Yet the technique, the mechanism, the dynamics have differed. Within one generation, there have been differences. So can you imagine, after 1400 years and with the enormous changes in world conditions, should there not be accommodation for the changes? There should be accommodation for the changes. Now, keeping in mind that concept of reciprocation, can you now say that a Muslim should not be killed for a non-Muslim? Like if a Muslim killed a non-Muslim in a Muslim country, like Egypt. Can this discourse even be sort of bearable by the so-called secular elites, or the majority of people, not the secular elites, the people in the coffee shops in Egypt, to go and to talk to them about this? It is not. It's not possible. Now, wherever this may be theoretically applied, like in Saudi Arabia, they're Hanbalis. Hanbalis do believe in this, and certainly it is the majority, aside from the Hanafis. But at the end of the day, if this non-Muslim that was killed is backed by, is a citizen of a strong country, he will not be. That Muslim is just not going to sort of, find his way out of this. Now, generally speaking, traditionally, historically, so that we have a proper understanding of our tradition as well, that Muslim was liable, he committed a crime that is punishable, but not by equal retribution, not qisas, according to Maliki, Shafi'is, and Hanbalis. Liable and subject to equal retribution according to the Hanafis. Okay, so, but nowadays, taking the Hanafi position it is not a matter of luxury. It's a matter of necessity. It is not even affordable to take the position of the majority. And if you want to say, this is our religion, we just do whatever we want, then that certainly is up to you. But again, at the same time, can we say that you would be okay here, since you live in a non-Muslim majority, to not have equal rights? You have to be fair and reasonable. The type of world that we aspire to have, we have to be consistent, because most of us, our discourse sounds very hypocritical, including your liberal imams, or whatever the discourse still sounds hypocritical, because everyone tries to build that mutual bond with the rest of the community, with the rest of the Muslims. How do you build that mutual bond? You either built it through shared love or shared hate. We're having a little bit of difficulty with the shared love thing, because we, look at the social media. Like if you are, just the other day someone was saying Ibn Taymiyyah alayhi la'natullah. So that is, we're having a little bit of difficulty with the shared love thing. So it appears that for most of us, the hate of the other is the way we can get closer, build the bond. That is a miserable way of building the bond among ourselves. If that is the only way we can build the bond and promote, enhance, and improve the mutual bond among ourselves, that's a very miserable way, because that will basically make us more, that will just create more problems for us as minorities. And keep in mind, most importantly, it will make more problems for the Muslim majority countries. So we have to understand that concept of reciprocation. We have to basically understand that there are certain things that you basically need to consider that particular piece, modern application. How are you going to do this? Now, when we talk about this, we have something called the definitive or qat'i, and that, certainly that qat'i or definitive is also subjective even among the scholars to some extent, but some of it is not subjective, some of it is objective. We have the qat'i of the revelation, Like for instance, sodomy will never be halal in Islam. It's just will never be halal. It just doesn't happen, because it will basically, like if you want to make it halal, you're blowing up the whole system, the whole value system, the whole pyramid. So there are certain things that are qat'i, and certainly, and I'm talking about this between two different genders or two different sexes. It is halal according to it is haram according to the majority, always. But when I'm talking about definitive here, I'm talking about between the same. So now that definitive thing, that is really definitive, is out of touch. Except when in darura. Even that definitive. Don't you eat pork in darura? Is it definitive or indefinitive? Definitive. It is out of touch except in darura. But if there is no darura, a legal darura, then it's out of touch. We can't discuss it. So we have like a bottom line that we have bounds. We have a bottom line and we have bounds. And every religion has, for the religion's survival, you can't make the religion sort of without bounds and without a bottom line. No religion would survive that like this. So we have a bottom line and we have boundaries, and we have to respect them, and anything that is definitive is out of reach except in cases of necessities and so on. But then beyond this, then we basically will find in our tradition, in our heritage, we will find positions that will not put us in hardship as communities, as a community, as a religious community, that will not subject us to hardship. The issue here is that we have different groups of people. We have a group that wants to start anew and basically find that the legacy is too insufferable and unsuitable for the times, and they want to start anew. Some of them profess Islam and they fast and pray and so on, but they still find the laws, the legacy, the legal tradition to just be insufferable, and they want to start anew. Some of them, they want, and it's expected, human beings are like this. At the other end of the spectrum, some of them are so radical that they want basically to completely disregard the notion of context, suitability, basically propriety, etc. And they want their own understanding to be imposed on the majority of Muslims and the non-Muslims. And their own understanding could be very rigid, and they may it may be dictated by their sort of psychological makeup. Keep in mind that many of the Muslims that grow up in this culture will tend to be, or in Europe, will tend to be extreme like this. They will tend to be either here or there, because they don't have to work with other people. Like, you know, to grow up in a Muslim country gives you that advantage of having seen it from inside. You know, what is working and what is not working, and where is the tension and and all of that stuff. But people here, and particularly second and third generation, people that are detached from Muslim countries back there, to them it's a theory. And it is either, you know, all or none. It is either that they become sort of disenchanted with our legal tradition and they just go away. They become extreme in that sense. Or they develop a reactionary position and they become extreme in this way. So they want to defend everything that they consider to be Islamic without any sort of consideration of it may not be the only Islamic position. Have you really studied this matter? Have you investigated it? Do you know if this is the only Islamic position? Do you know the contemporary discourse among the scholarly community? I'm not talking about the contemporary discourse like among you sort of, you know, the laity. Do you know the contemporary discourse among the scholarly community or not? No, nothing. It's just that because they identify as Muslims, they just want to defend anything that would be sort of Islamic. The people that are working in the middle here, who want to respect the definitive, want to work within the legal tradition to find solutions that are suitable for the time and that are possible today. You know, these people are always accused by both ends of extremism. These people will see them as radical. These people will see them as sellouts. and they just have to suffer through, if they want to do this for the sake of Allah, they just have to basically continue doing it and ignore all the noise. Ignore all the noise. They still want to work with the definitive. They want to work within our system, our legal tradition, our system, but they have flexibility and they have like a level of understanding. Like when al-Tahir ibn Ashur says that وَضْرِبُوهُنَّ, that the state can stop, and I'm not necessarily, it's not particularly that example, but basically wife hitting. When al-Tahir ibn Ashur can say that the state can suspend that, forbid wife hitting, because people have abused it, because people have weak religious commitment, have become corrupted to where the state may intervene and stop this. Have we seen things change during the time of the Sahaba? Have we seen measures? Have we seen Umar suspend the hadd of sariqa? Have we seen Umar suspending, and it continues to be suspended up until now, at-taghrib fi zina, which is exiling people if they commit fornication, because although it happened during the time of the Prophet ﷺ, but it was feared that it would lead for those people to leave Islam. So that taghrib segment of the hadd was basically suspended up until now. Have we seen Uthman change things about, dallat al-ibil, for instance, and order them to bring dallat al-ibil, to pick up dallat al-ibil and not leave it, and things of that nature? Yes. So when al-Tahir ibn Ashur says something like this, certainly for the completely unqualified, and it is okay for the qualified scholars to refute him, absolutely, because that is the healthy discourse, respectfully refute him. Completely acceptable. But for the completely unqualified, to consider al-Tahir ibn Ashur a sellout, to consider him a modernist, to consider him a liberal this or this is just, there are no words. Al-Tahir ibn Ashur is a scholar well grounded in knowledge. Not just a scholar, he is from al-Rasikhin fil ilm. The tafsir of al-Tahir ibn Ashur is unparalleled since the beginning of Islam until now. There is no better tafsir. And many would agree with it. Many people would agree with this. People who are impartial and fair. So for someone who have not finished one book on fiqh, to basically recline or sit in his recliner and say Tahir ibn Ashur is salawat, and on the keyboard is trying to wage a campaign, a virtual campaign. How can we survive like this? How can we have a civil discourse? How can we? That is completely, utterly crazy and disheartening, and it will prevent people from providing solutions from within the system to basically for our legal tradition to survive, and for our legal tradition to not be wholesale rejected by not the secular elites that you project all of your blame on, but the majority of Muslims in the Muslim majority countries. It's not the secular elites, it is the majority of people who profess Islam. Therefore, we have to give some room, we have to have some decency in our discourse, and we have to allow some room for the scholars that are well grounded in knowledge to work with our legal tradition in a way that will be conducive to its survival in modern times. There is a difference between antiquity and modernity. When the Christians crossed from antiquity to modernity, they had a very rough and chaotic crossing. We want to cross safely. In what sense? In preserving our deen without plunging into complete chaos and tribulations and that we are going through in the Muslim countries. So we just want to safely cross and preserve our legal tradition, preserve our deen, preserve our legal tradition. Therefore, when we talk about these things, try to basically understand your little position in the sort of the corner of some corner there. Just try to treat yourself, if you have any delusion of grandeur, leave it up to the scholars well grounded in knowledge that are in their own countries, and pray for them and support basically a civil discourse within the Muslim community. Support what you can support. If you want to work for the betterment of the Muslim community worldwide, do your best. There is so much room for you to help. So much room for you to help. But do not, avoid that الافتيات على أهل العلم والافتيات على أهل الحل والعقد, which is do not usurp the right of others, the people in charge, the people in authority, whether they are أهل العلم or أهل الحل والعقد, because that would not be suitable, not appropriate at all. Just leave them. What you want to believe in deep in your heart is that whatever Allah had prescribed is perfect, because that is integral to being a Muslim. Whatever Allah had prescribed is perfect. Now, if they ask you, what do you suggest for the Muslim countries at this point, and when it comes to the hudud, when it comes to this, defer to the people who should be in charge of this, who should be discussing this. The scholars well grounded in knowledge and Ahl al-Hal wal-Aqd in the different Muslim countries. Okay, this was a long introduction, but it is important that we start with this. It was important that we start with this introduction. There will be some issues here that are sensitive, and like we did in the past, we will be clear and transparent. We will talk about them, but we will also try to contextualize them and talk about modern application. Kitab al-Jinayat, Imām Qudāmah rahimahullah, in his book al-Umdat, which is a Hanbali primer, said under the book of crimes of fatal and non-fatal assault, Kitab al-Jinayat. What is al-Jinayat? What does al-Jinayat mean? What does Jana mean? Transgressed. It means harvested. Or harvest. وَجَعَلْنَا الْجَنَّتَيْنِ دَانٍ. The harvest. Why are we using this for jinayat or crimes? Because you will harvest the consequences of your evil. You will always harvest the consequences of your evil, here in this dunya and in the hereafter. So jana jinaya, he had committed a crime. It means that he will harvest the consequences of his doing. Why did he use the plural instead of the singular? Jinayat versus jinaya, because there are different types of jinayat. So what are the jinayat in the sense of crimes about? And linguistically, they are about assault or aggression against
people,
body. That includes fatal and non-fatal. That would be assault against property. That would be assault against honor. Assault against property would be like a lot of things, you know, sariqa, stealing, ikhtilas, embezzlement, ghasb, forceful seizure. So ghasb is when you take it from me not discreetly, just like by force. Sariqa is when you take it discreetly. Ikhtilas does not fulfill the requirements of sariqa. You know, as an employee, you have the money with you, for instance, but you take some, embezzle some of the money. But the money is not in a herz away from you. It is not in a safe away from you or locked and so on, so that we call it sariqa. It would be ikhtilas. So different types of, violation of property here, vandalism and so on. And honor, such as accusations and libel and accusations, stuff like this. Now, when it comes to al-jinayat in fiqh, what do they refer to? Linguistically, they refer to all of this. In fiqh, they refer to this only. So how are we going to call like aggression, or how are we going to call transgression of your property? What are we going to call it? Sariqa. And where are we going to place this under, and even the honor here, under which category? Hudud. This will be under which category? Al-Qisas. It is Jinayat, and because here we have Qisas, these are Jinayat, fatal and non-fatal, assaulting the body, fatal and non-fatal assault on the body. Here it is Al-Hudud. So why are we separating the category of Hudud and Jinayat? Huh?
Qisas involves family, but hudud doesn't? Or
Correct.
The judge.
Correct. But why is it like this, that the qisas would involve, that the family will have a say in qisas, or al-awliya, the entitled heirs of the victim, or the victim himself in the case of non-fatal wounds? Why is it that they have a say, but they don't have a say here, except with the hadd of qasf, or accusation of chaste people of fornication or something, where there may be some disagreement here about the hadd. Hudud, are considered to be the rights of Allah, or تغلب فيها حق الله على حق العباد, rights of Allah. جنايات are حقوق العباد تغلب فيها حق العباد على حق الله. You give precedence, although all of them are both حق الله وحق العباد, but in جنايات you are given precedence to حق العباد, and in حدود you are given precedence to حق الله عز وجل. Why is this? So, like, someone stole money from me, someone punched me in the face, broke my nose. Why is it different?
Could be restored.
Public welfare. It is as if Allah is saying that here there is enough motivation or interest in retribution. But here there may not be. And because the violations here, which is fornication, accusation, which is qadhf, شرب حد الخمر and drinking wine, القذف وشرب الخمر والسرقة الحرابة, because some may consider these things like fornication, like stealing, like qadhf. Allah is saying that I will not leave it up to the community to decide, the evil of this, because the evil may be subtle, but, so someone who stole like an iPhone, really you cut off someone's hand for this? Well, that's the question that people will have. So Allah is saying that the evil, the societal harm is such that this individual incident may not be that big of a deal, but the fact that the person had violated the sacredness of property, and he may do it the same in the future. And keep in mind that this is in an Islamic environment where we have fulfilled all of the requirements and conditions for this to be applicable. And there is compassion, and there is this and that, and there is zakat, and and certainly not in times of famine, and not. But anyway, the issue here is that the violation of the sacredness of property, if we allow this to happen, because we are always saying is that really a big deal, that will recur and will spread. Vertically, recurrence, and horizontally spread to other individuals, because when this crime is not punishable by something severe, the possibility of spread will always be there. So that is the difference between these two different segments, al-qisas, which is equal retribution, and al-hudud, which means the boundaries. These are the fixed penalties. These are the bounds that Allah said, don't cross. Here are the fixed penalties for these crimes. So, Kitab al-Jinayat is then about what? About assault, but not all forms of assault and not all forms of violation or transgression, but only body, transgression of the body. Fatal and non-fatal. Fatal and non-fatal. And the Sheikh here started by talking about the three different types of qatl. So the first thing that he talked about, so it is fatal and the non-fatal. So this would be al-jarah, and this would be al-qatl. And the non-fatal, he will discuss later. Now we have the fatal. So this will be Al-Qatl, he will divide it into 3 different types. And that is the Hanbali classification, 3 different types. One of them is al-amd, which is intentional. That is murder proper, intentional murder. One of them is al-khata, which is error, out of error. And one of them is shibh al-amd, or amd al-khata, or khata al-amd, which is sort of quasi-murder. It is khata because you did not intend to kill. It is amd because you intended to hurt. You know, the Prophet ﷺ said, diyatu al-amd, diyatu shibh al-amd, ma kana bis-sawti wal-asa, mi'atun min al-ibil, fi butuniha awladuha. So the diya for the quasi-murder is that which is done by the whip and the stick or the shaft or the cane. So if you hit someone, you did not mean to kill, you meant to hurt, and then you killed them, then that would be considered somewhere between amd and khata. So these are the 3 different types of killing according to the Hanbalis. There is another type, according to a report in the Hanbali madhab, supported by Ibn Taymiyyah, that is added by the Malikis. The Malikis are the ones who have this type which is higher than amd, which is called the qatl al-ghila. That is deceptive, treacherous killing, where you bring someone, give like someone an appointment out in the desert and kill them. When like a wife puts like a mukhaddir or something, for,
Poison? Yeah.
No, not a poison. It's intoxicant or whatever, for her husband, and then and then slaughters him or kills him. It includes. I'm not giving any ideas to anyone.
Premeditated.
It includes a level of deception and treachery, and that particular type, that's not according to the Hanafis, Shafi'is, or Hanbalis. They don't have that business. They have nothing to do with the ghila. They consider this to be amd, and that's it, just like any other killing. But this one, according to the Malikis, and a position in the Hanbali madhab, chosen by Ibn Taymiyyah, rahimahullah, this one is, this ghila one, is not, there is no option for clemency here. The family does not have the right to pardon the killer. The family does not have the right to pardon the killer. The family does not have the right to accept blood money, diya. There is only one route for this, which is death, equal retribution. Let me finish al-ghila, and then we can defer the rest until next time because we only have 6 minutes. So why did they make an exception here? The Malikis, why did the Malikis make an exception here? The Malikis said that there are certain times where the Prophet ﷺ did not ask the awliya for their opinion. One report, 2 Badris, one of them is al-Harith ibn Suwaid, and one of them is Mijzar or al-Mujazzir, Mijzar ibn Ziyad. This is reported by al-Bayhaqi from al-Waqidi, but from al-Waqidi it is a little bit shaky. It's not really, bottom line, this is not established. But it has been used because it was reported that Harith ibn Suwaid that Mijdar killed the father of al-Harith ibn Suwaid. So al-Harith ibn Suwaid wanted to kill Mijdar, and on the day of Uhud, they both were at Badr. On the day of Uhud, he found Mijdar, so he came from the back and killed him. That involves treachery because they are on the battlefield on one side. Okay. So then Al-Harith kept on asking the Prophet ﷺ to pay the diya, but the Prophet ﷺ had, the family there of Mijdar, but he did not accept from Al-Harith anything except establishing the qisas. It is also reported that when the people from Uql came and spent time in Medina and then became sick, and the Prophet ﷺ told them, go out and with the shepherd of our camels or with the caretaker of our camels and spend time with him and drink from the milk and the urine of the camels. And they killed the caretaker of the camels. Some reports said that they irtaddu, but most of the reports do not talk about ridda. And the Prophet caught them, and you know what he did to them. He cut them up in pieces and left them in the desert. So, but anyway, the point here is that the Prophet ﷺ did not ask, the point that is being made is that the Prophet ﷺ did not ask the awliya whether they want diya or not. He just killed them. There is this Jewish man who killed a young woman to steal her jewelry, and radda ra'saha bayna hajarayn. He killed her with a rock, crushed her head with a rock. And the Prophet ﷺ crushed his head with a rock. It's not reported that he asked the family whether they wanted the day or not. All of these have been answered by Ibn Hazm as, whoever told you he didn't ask. The hadith does not say that. But whoever told you positively, not just assume a presumption, because the hadith did not mention it. Well, anyway, there is some room for disagreement here, but this is the position of the Malikis. One report that's not the authorized one in the Hanbali madhab, chosen by Ibn Taymiyyah, which separate between treacherous killing and all kinds of other kinds of intentional killing. And in this case, they say treacherous killing, no chance for clemency. Death is the punishment. By doing this, what have they done? They moved this completely outside this segment and made it a had. They made treacherous killing or qatl al-ghila had, because a had is not basically negotiable. So they made qatl al-ghila had. Next time, inshallah, we will talk about the three different types of killing, which is al-amd, shibh al-amd, and al-khata, and what is due for each one of these different types of killing, and why is it that the family will have a say here, and they have the ability to pardon the killer. قل قولي هذا أستغفر الله لي ولكم سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.